everybody. I'm Tom Andrews from Women Without War, back again with John Isaacs from Council for Livable World, and we're here on this Friday, the Friday before Thanksgiving, and right behind us we're watching the Senate as they vote on the $50 billion appropriations bill that the Democrats put up. The Democrats were able to pass this in the House yesterday, John. It's now in the Senate today. No one expects that the Senate is going to have enough votes to carry the day, the 60 votes for cloture. So what is your analysis of this, John, and what does this mean in terms of this $50 billion passing at some point between now and Christmas?
First of all, to clarify, there in fact in the Senate on today, which is Friday, 2 votes on the Iraq war funding, the so-called bridge fund. The Senate will vote on whether or not to bring up the bill that passed in the House. As you say, it will also vote on a measure introduced by Senator Mitch McConnell, the Republican leader, to appropriate $70 billion, $20 billion more, $70 billion to pay for the wars with no conditions. But it's likely that either of the two measures will get the 60 votes required to bring debate. Then, as you say, Congress disappears for 2 weeks for the Thanksgiving break, comes back for some time in December, but it's already a very busy schedule in December. A lot of appropriations bills, for example, haven't been completed, and other bills. And it's doubtful, possible but doubtful, that the Senate or House will deal with funding for the wars before the new year, before sometime in 2008. And in addition, both Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Majority Leader Harry Reid have said there will be no additional funding for the war in Iraq unless there are conditions. They will not give the president a blank check anymore.
And it's interesting that the conditions that they put on the bill were, engineered in part to deal with the concern of the blue dogs, the more conservative Democrats in the House. They wanted to pick up some moderate Republicans. In fact, they did. They picked up 4. It, for example, did not establish a date certain for the removal of U.S. troops, only a goal for U.S. troops. Allowed troops to be on the ground to do training missions, counterinsurgency missions. So there were lots of loopholes and openings for Republicans and moderates to vote. They picked up some, but not enough. Now we find, John, that of course the sky is going to fall, according to the president, if they don't get this supplemental, some form of a supplemental appropriation. They're asking for $200 billion more in funding. This was a $50 billion package. And I come from New England, and we have a system of town meetings, town hall meetings, in which we decide our local budget. And you can bet your life that when it comes to any kind of tight budget situation, the administration would always come to the voters and say, well, if we have to have a cut, of course it's going to be the football team that's not all the popular items. And of course the president is saying, and Secretary Gates is saying, that if they don't get this $50 billion by the end of the year, the sky is going to fall, despite the fact that the Congress just appropriated $470 billion for the Defense Department, a record. Never in the history of this country has any Congress provided more money for the defense bill, and not a single penny of that goes to the Iraq war in Afghanistan. All of that money for Iraq is in this $200 billion supplemental. So do you expect to see more of this kind of jockeying, as it were, between the House, Senate, and the President and Secretary Gates, John, in the next few weeks? The sky is going to fall unless they get, now it would total almost $800 billion for defense.
Yes, despite everything that's happened in the war in this past year, in fact, very little has changed politically. Most of the Democrats are ready to get out of the war, following the views of their constituents. The Republicans are still supporting the president and saying, we like the war, we want it to continue, it's going so well. But in the meantime, as you say, the administration will claim that without these funds for the war, our troops will be left without any support, without any weapons, without any protection, and that's unfortunate. But in fact, as you say, the Congress has already appropriated a huge amount of money for the Pentagon. That money can be transferred to pay for the wars. The only crisis is a mental crisis within the Bush administration. It's not with the troops in Iraq.
A lot of smoke is already being blown about this. A lot of more smoke is going to come. Majority Leader Harry Reid said yesterday that in his view there's plenty of money in the defense bill, there's plenty of money in the Pentagon to go for at least another 6 months. We're going to hear more of this rhetoric heating up in the next few weeks and months. And the bottom line is, John, that push ultimately is going to come to shove. And we've seen up to this point the Republicans and the President has been able to prevail in these showdowns. And the only way we're going to be able to make some progress on this is for members of the public, particularly those of us who are against the war, to be talking to members of Congress during the next 2 weeks in particular. There's a 2-week break starting today. The members of the House and Senate will be home Thanksgiving week and the week after, the last weekend in November. So there's plenty of opportunity to make calls, to go visit, to meet with members as they campaign for re-election, as they do their respective town hall meetings, and bring this issue up. If they voted the right way or the wrong way, the pressure needs to be maintained. John, this is, of course, the Thanksgiving holiday upon us. Any other predictions of what we're going to see between now and December, the December break in the House or the Senate?
Yes, I do predict that there will be a lot of turkeys that will be slaughtered between now and the time Congress returns, and an awful lot of leftovers as a result. But I don't expect much more to happen on the war. It continues while Americans are celebrating, of course. We still have about 160,000 troops that are being wounded, killed. The war continues apace, and Americans are going about their business. Instead of forcing the Congress to say, end the war, forcing the President to bring the troops home. That's the message, as you say. Speaker Pelosi and Majority Leader Reid have been strong, saying no funding without conditions, and we should make sure that they're supported in that view.
Well, the Senate is in the process right now of casting their votes on cloture for this $50 billion bridge fund. There's no doubt at all that this is going to go down, and we're going to leave Washington. That is, the Congress will leave Washington without the bridge funding bill. Many of us think that's probably a good thing, but the debate will continue. Next week, we're going to take a pause from our following very closely the developments in the House and the Senate. We're going to step back and try to get some perspective here in the anti-war room, and we're inviting a retired Brigadier General, John Johns, who's been with us over the past several weeks. We've been traveling to different parts of the country to talk about the war, and General Johns gives a very unique and valuable perspective on the war in Iraq, on the prospect of an attack on Iran, and he's going to be joining us next week, next Wednesday here in the Anti-War Room to talk about all of these developments from his perspective, so we hope that you'll join us. So, John, I hope we still have a few viewers after those comments on this turkeys and leftovers. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving next week, John. I hope all of you have a great Thanksgiving. Of course, we're going to work hard to make sure our troops over in Iraq have a much better Thanksgiving next year. And we thank you all for tuning in and for joining us here on the Anti-War Room. Thanks so much.